I'm Phil Hellmuth Jr. So far, most of the bluffing strategies that we've discussed have involved making a play for the pot on the turn. But that's not the only place where you can bluff, and in this lesson, we'll take a look at bluffing on the river. In many ways, bluffing on the river is no different than bluffing on the turn, especially if you've been floating your opponent. In this case, where you've been floating your opponent, the ideal time to bluff is when a scare card hits the board on the river. If your opponent checks to you, you can fire at the pot in this situation to represent that you've made your hand. You can also bluff a scare card out of position by leading out on the river after you've floated your opponent on the turn. If there's no scare card, you can also bluff the river by making what's known as a triple barrel move, baby. The key to making the triple barrel move is by betting both the flop and the turn. And by the way, I tried that up at the Bay 101 at the final table in 2010. I raised with 10-7. The flop came queen, queen, 9. I fired out. I got called. The turn card was a 4. He checked. I fired out $110,000. He called again. The river was a king, and now I fired $185,000. Sadly for me, I had the nuts and the heart and the guts to make the triple barrel bluff, but my opponent had 3 queens with a jack and called me. I'm sure, though, that Mike Sexton will talk about what a great move I made. Back to our story. If you've bet both previous streets, you can finish the triple barrel play by betting the third time on the river, as previously described. This can be a very effective play because your actions are telling your opponent a very strong story, since only a big hand is likely to bet an opponent all 3 streets. But while the triple barrel bluff can be effective, you also have to be careful in executing the play. The best time to bluff the river with a 3-barrel bluff is when your opponent made a reluctant call on the turn. If your opponent called quickly on the turn or you sense strength, then think twice about firing the third bullet, because it's likely as a hand that has you beat and, more importantly, that he won't fold. In this case, betting the river is just reckless. Now, be careful. Sometimes people call quickly on the turn with a weak hand to try to scare you off betting on the river. So you just have to kind of pay attention to what you think.